All right, I hit the start stream button. So we should be good. You should be seeing me. Gonna see if it popped up on the thing. Gonna sing until I see myself. Hopefully everything is working. I'm not sure what's happening now. So if you hear me singing, hopefully it's not annoying. Just gonna see. Is it going? Is it going? Oh my gosh, thank you, Mouse Pounder. You can see and hear me fine. All right. Sorry, that's how I'm going to start every single stream from now on. It's just going to be singing. All right, cool. Everything looks like it's good. So let me just put things away. All right, everybody. Hope you all are doing good today. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just going to... So, as some of you may notice, I guess I'll kind of get this out of the way. I know there may be some internet problems here on this stream, and apologies for that, because, as you may notice, I'm in a new surrounding, and that's because recently, obviously, I talked about in this video, we can talk about later on the stream, you know, some stuff happened with my job, lost my full-time job because of the craziness, and there's positives in that, and I'll get to that in a second. But one of the positives of it is that, well, since I didn't have any more work to do, I decided my parents run a bed and breakfast down in Taos, New Mexico, and so I decided to go and visit them because I haven't seen them in a while, and you know, a long time. I rarely get a chance to actually spend a long amount of time with them. They could use the help getting things all set. So I decided to head to New Mexico to just, you know, enjoy their company, help them out, things like that. And so, yeah, I'm here. And don't worry, just so everyone knows, I am social distancing. Like I said, they run a bed and breakfast. So I'm actually in one of their rooms. It's a big sort of property, so it's easy to social distance. We're trying to stay as far apart from each other as possible, at least for 2 weeks. And it'll just allow me some time to get out of here. But the big problem is my dad hasn't upped his internet bill, and I'm going to help him a little bit with that. But just upping his internet a little bit so it'll deal with any latency problems on my end. So, just so everyone knows, if in this stream things get a little bit weird in terms of the internet, my apologies on that front. Hopefully that'll be fixed by next live stream and next week. So, but yeah, no, like I said, and the other thing that I want to say, and I want to get to talking with the chat, but I want to make sure I say a few things up front. So, like I said, last week, Friday, I lost my full-time job, and it really sucks. It's scary. I've been calling unemployment, California unemployment, pretty much every day. By the way, California unemployment lines, phone lines, open 4 hours a day. Only 4 hours a day. Even weeks into this whole crisis. So yeah, so I've been calling them. I've called about 500 to 600 times each day so far, to try and get on it, but it has been to no avail. I found out that they do have a paper one, form that I'm going to try and turn in, so hopefully that'll get things moving faster. But all that to note, I will say, I did the video on Friday, just to inform you guys and to you know, if you can help me, and if you can't, like I said, always take care of yourself first, and I really hope everyone is doing that. You know, you gotta think of yourself, but any support that you give me is much appreciated. And I just want to say, and I'm going to do a video on this, I want to say thank you to everyone. My Patreon blew up after that video, and in all honesty, I am both touched, humbled, honored, a little bit scared, just because I want to make sure that I earn your trust and your faith in me. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone, regardless of whether you gave on my Patreon or not. But I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped me out on Patreon, who support me over there now. Like I said, I'm honored, touched, and humbled. So thank you to all of you. It's going to be so much help going forward. You have no idea. So thank you for all of that. But regardless of if you give on Patreon, I just want to say thank you to everyone just for being here, for hanging out, keeping me sane, and doing this YouTube stuff. gives me, like, this is where my passion has been. Like, you know, full-time job is full-time job. It's not something I loved doing, but, you know, you do it because you do it. And this place, this YouTube has been the place where I've been able to put kind of my heart and soul. And the fact that it has resonated and that so many of you have supported me monetarily or otherwise, just being here, it means a lot. So I just wanted to say that up front because I kind of just want to have fun. We can talk and just hang for the rest of the stream, but I want to make sure that I said that. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'm going to do a video more clearly expressing all that, but I just want to say thank you. It means a lot. It really does. Okay, so all that being said, now that the kind of like heartwarming, slightly sad sometimes stuff, but really ultimately, hopefully positive, because like I said, the one thing and I was talking with my parents about this because I tried to explain to them YouTube stuff. The one thing I said to my parents was like, the one thing I'm so proud of with my YouTube is that it's built around positivity and that it's built around like being positive. So let's keep that up. I'm looking, as much as things are frustrating right now, I am looking forward to the future with a positive light. And there's a chance that this is a great opportunity to do some cool stuff. And at the very least, it's an opportunity to do more projects that I enjoy. So money is money and money is scary, but, you know, there are other positives that come out of the negatives. Like I said, one of them being I get to hang out with my parents, which is I don't get to see them often and they need the help. So, you know, it'll be fun. All right. So, hi, Christy, by the way. I just saw that you joined the chat. So let me start interacting with the chat. I saw a bunch of you were saying thank you and sending thanks and appreciation. So I appreciate all of you. All right. So let's have some fun. And to start off the fun, before I get to everyone's Patreon posts, I got some Irish cream, which is probably going to slowly become my live stream drink of choice because it's not super alcoholic. It's kind of fun. So let's get that started. Also, Mackenzie, thank you so much. Oh, you are amazing, Mackenzie. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Well, this first drink is going to be to you, Mackenzie, if I can get the top off. You can drink Irish cream straight. It's a weird thing. Everyone always is surprised by it. I know it's usually a mixer drink, but like putting in coffee or like White Russians or things like that. But I like to drink it straight. My mom used to do that when I was young, and she'd always like give me like a little sip of it just because it was a sweet drink. Not a lot, don't worry. It wasn't anything inappropriate. But when I was a kid, she'd always let me have a little sips, and I've just always enjoyed straight Irish cream. Maybe that's weird. It didn't seem weird to me, but it's tasty drink. I don't know. It's like drinking milk, just like alcoholic milk that's really tasty. So, all right. And also, like I mentioned at the top of the stream, in case people have joined so much, that is the good stuff. Yeah, Irish cream is like what? This is what, 13%? 17%. So 17% alcohol. So, you know, to be fair, I'm a bit of a lightweight, so so 17%, if I have like more than 2 of these, it'll probably start hitting me. You'll see it on the stream, but one of them, you know, I'll be fine. So cheers to everyone. Some random. I drink gin and bourbon straight. Don't feel too bad. I mean, gin and bourbon, people are like, everyone drinks gin and bourbon straight. You know what I hate, to be honest with you? Gin is okay. I'm not a big like whiskey, bourbon, scotch fan. I don't really enjoy those types of drinks. My brother does. My brother loves those things, and he always tries to like, here, try this whenever we have like a family gathering. But I'll just be like the person's like, yes, Irish cream, good vintage, yes. A bouquet of cream. I do put ice in my Irish cream right now, just because I've been waiting for. I'm in my a room at my parents' place at the bed and breakfast that they have. So there's no ice in here right now. So I was lazy. So it was just in the fridge though, so it should be fine. Ooh, port. Homebody loves port. That's a good one. Is that Star Trek Online space music in the background? Yes, it is, actually. I just put it on for mood. I can't actually hear it. So if it gets too loud or anything, just let me know, just because I don't have headphones on or anything. So I actually can't hear the music, but I put it on because I think it's sort of like a soothing, in character for me mood thing. So I'm going to interact with the chat more, but this is my monthly live stream. I do more live stream than this, but this is my monthly Ask Me Anything, which means that all of you out there in the live stream will get to ask me anything that you want, or we can just hang out, whatever you guys want to do. I'm happy to do whatever you guys are. But first things first, if you support me on Patreon at, I think, the $10 above level, that means you get to ask me a priority question, which means I will 100% answer it. So I'm going to jump over to those, and we're just going to answer some of the priority questions from my Patreons. And then once we finish that up, we will just hang out and have some fun. And I'll be interacting with the chat as I go through these. So let me just switch over real quick. Cool. So now you should see a cool new setup. Also, I wonder if I can get my dog in here. My parents have a dog that I've had since a kid. His name is Mickey, and he's the most adorable dog whatsoever. So he might be outside if I call him. I might go up and get him later on. So we'll have some fun. Also, my phone's going off. Sorry, one second. I'll be right back. Sorry about all that, everybody. There was a spam call, so apologies for leaving the stream for a hot second there. Okay. My hair looks awful. Okay, so let us go to our first question. This is from Din. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. And also Wellington, you kind of, with who I know, Wellington, I know you're in the chat there, so I know you kind of went off this question. So Din asks, "Hi, Jesse. If you could live in the Star Trek universe in any century, would you be in Starfleet, and if so, what would your ideal job be?" And then Wellington sort of went off of that. It was, would you be a human? Just like the Frankie say, "I'm watching TNG, and I kind of want to be a Janai." Janai were I believe, the aliens from the Outcast, the non-binary aliens, who fled to the homeworld to join Starfleet and train as an emergency medic. That's cool. I love that. So you get to be non-binary just as a race, and then you can like join Starfleet and be emergency medic. And so for me, okay, so I'll answer Wellington's first because I think that'd be more interesting, and then kind of get into job stuff. If I could pick any race, I mean, this is going to be the easy answer, but if I could be any race, it would 100% be a Trill. I mean, come on. I adore Trill so much. And, when I saw this question pop up yesterday, I was even thinking, like, would I be a symbiote Trill or not? Would I want to get a symbiote? Would I try to apply for one? And I think I would. I mean, I kind of, like, fear about death, and we all do. And there's a nice part of me that's sort of like, oh, I would like to have my memories continue on after death in some form. And then also, you know me, everyone out there, like, I'm a big community person. I like creating community and joining together with people. And so I feel like having symbiote and having these memories, like this community of people in my head, I feel would be like really, I don't know, it would be like really comforting in a lot of ways for me. I know some people are loners. I am someone who just loves community and loves being around people. So I think I would definitely be a Trill with a symbiote if I could pick. As for joining Starfleet, by the way, hi Alejandra, thank you for being a subscriber, and thanks for joining. And Robert, thank you. Hello. So you're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so you're actually not too far from where I'm at right now. So that's awesome. So been thinking about it. See, the problem with, like, would I be in Starfleet in the Star Trek future is sort of like, it's hard to say yes or no, because I don't know much. I mean, Star Trek Picard was the first Star Trek show that gave us, like, any real look at what civilian life is, and even then it was kind of like the seedy underbelly. Deep Space Nine to a degree as well. Like, he'd be a journalist. In fact, thinking about it, I would probably want to join, like, a news organization. I think you kind of get to do the same thing that Starfleet does, which is, like, I'm not as big scientist. I like talking about stories and talking about people. And yeah, Starfleet definitely has much more to do in that realm in terms of, like, doing treaties and things. But then it also does military stuff, which definitely not something that I would be up for. So I feel like if I was in the Star Trek world, I'd like to be a journalist, kind of like Jake Sisko. I think that would be a lot of fun. Because then you can kind of go out and explore, get the story, but then you're telling stories of people, and you live in a society that actually deeply cares about that. and actually will try to do something. So it feels like telling those stories would actually matter. And the galaxy is huge and expansive, so there's so many stories to tell. So I feel like I would be either a journalist or, kind of what I do now and like want to tell fiction stories. And I mean, I don't tell fiction stories now, but like be a filmmaker or whatever, like holodeck creator, storyteller. That would be a lot of fun. So I think that's what I would do if I joined the Starfleet. Yeah, the age-old question, Robert, is Starfleet the military? LOL. Yeah, age-old question. I would say it generally is, but it's a much different type of military than we think of the military today, because it's there to serve a military function and need, but its primary goal is not protect and serve. Its primary goal is explore and serve, I guess. So I guess that would be sort of the distinction. It is a military, but slightly different. That's how I would kind of place it. And there's a video in there, by the way. I've thought about doing that and kind of doing a video on the Makos from Enterprise. Gavin Robinson. When do you think we'll see Discovery Season 3? I really thought after Picard was over, we'd hear more information. Well, I think this is, we do know, there's a couple things we do know. First off, I do think the intention by CBS was to probably by now announce when Discovery was going to happen, but obviously the world stuff happened first, because we saw at the end of Picard, before Picard, the season finale aired on that episode, they had the little logo and little trailer for Discovery. And my assumption would be maybe they would have even put the date on that if the world hadn't gone the way it had, or they soon after would have, like after, a week or two after Picard ended, they would have said something. But we do know right now that while they did finish filming of Discovery, and they're probably able to edit and do at least some semblance of post-production stuff on the show, which is great, we do know that the composer, whose name I'm blanking on at the moment, he's a wonderful composer, his work is amazing, but the composer for both Picard and Discovery, he recently tweeted out that the big problem, he's able to write music for Discovery, but they can't get the orchestra together, because obviously social distancing, they can't have people in the same room to perform the music for Discovery, so weirdly, something that you wouldn't necessarily think about, but the thing that's probably going to hold up the season is doing the orchestra. So that is kind of the unfortunate thing. So it looks like Discovery Season 3 is probably going to be delayed. But on the bright side, what that might mean is that we do know that the Star Trek Lower Deck show, the animated series, the creator of that tweeted out that show is going ahead just fine, because they were all basically working remotely anyways before all this, because that animation's sort of done all over the world anyways. So they were already working remotely. So what it may mean is while we were probably supposed to get Discovery Season 3 first, we probably, just because of how things are going now, will get Lower Decks first, then Discovery Season 3. Maybe not. Maybe things will change, but if I had to place money on it, that would be a fair bet. But I don't Lower Decks, but I wouldn't expect it, so. Hi, Michael from Bay City, Michigan. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining. So should explain for me a bit of the innate talent for music and explain my experience of my gender a bit more. And what I realized I was non-binary, had the words to describe myself more accurately. Oh, I wish I might have missed. Are you talking about the trill, Soch? Because that sounds like the trill, and I could talk all day about the trill. Well, actually, we can talk more about it once I finish these questions. Hello, Ian, or hopefully I'm saying Ion. Hopefully I'm saying your name, saying your name right. Excuse me. Hello from Northern Ireland. I first saw your video on Pike. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so proud of that Pike video. So I'm glad you caught it. All right, next question from my Patreons is Zach Cody. Hi, Jesse. I really enjoyed your recent Ferengi video, and I listened to it on a drive. Would you consider releasing a podcast version of your videos with just audio, or possibly doing some sort of sci-fi and philosophy podcast? Thanks. Well, actually, so here's a cool thing. So Zach, actually, I don't know if you're in the chat or not, but your question, I saw it yesterday when you posted it, and actually I've been thinking for a while about wanting to do a podcast, and now that I don't have a full-time position, that's something I can definitely do, but if I was going to do a podcast, I want it to be something unique that feels specific to me, because a lot of the time, I see a lot of podcasts that I love. There are many podcasts that I love because I love the hosts, but a lot of the time the pitch of the podcast is like, we're just going to talk about Star Trek, or we're just going to talk about philosophy. And if you have a built-in fan base or you're a strong host, that can take you far. And not to say I'm not a strong host, but I would like, if I was going to do something, I want it to be specific and have a specific concept in mind, making it like a cool show to do. And here's a funny thing. So, last night, my dad and I were sitting around. He has a fire, since we're out in New Mexico, he has a fire pit, and we just made a fire, and we were chatting. And we were talking, and we kind of came up with an idea, and I want to pitch it to you guys real quickly right here to let me know what you think of this idea. And I'm going to develop it further. This literally came up last night, but I was thinking about, like, my dad and I love each other very much, but we also, like, he is very curious about gender issues. He's also the one that, like, he gave me my love of Star Trek and The Hobbit. Like, the reason that I have a Hobbit tattoo here, and the reason I have that tattoo is because he used to read me that book when I was a little kid. And I love that book so much. So he and I were just thinking about, like, well, it would be a great idea or a lot of fun and a good way for us to just connect more to do a podcast together where I kind of try to explain gender issues to someone who is very kind and understanding but has zero idea. Like, I was trying to explain TERFs to him last night, like what they are, and he was so confused. And I think that'd be a fun way to, like, talk about prescient issues, talk about gender issues, talk about politics in a way that's, like, trying to connect across generational divides. And even to a degree, my dad's, he airs on more conservative, but honestly his views, especially socially, are much more, like, liberal progressive than he would admit. By no way, like, he's supportive of LGBTQ issues and things like that. But it'd be, like, an interesting way to, like, have a conversation that feels positive, loving, productive, but talks about more contentious topics that a lot of people get confused by. And I think that would just be a lot of fun to do and a good way for me to connect with my father. So I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on that. I see some of you are already commenting on it. Often listen to Gavin Robinson. My dad introduced me to Trek, and I'll always be grateful for that. That's actually what got me thinking about this, by the way. I did a video a few weeks ago where people shared their stories of Trek, and so many of them were about parents, and I got introduced by Star Trek through my parents too. So many people are introduced through family, and I wanted to do a video, and I'm going to do a video with my dad where we talk about that, like what he saw, why he wanted to give nerddom to me, why that was important to him, and then where he feels like we diverge because we have differing interests within that. And so I think that might be the first episode of the podcast, and I might do it as a video as well. But yeah. Professor Frank, excellent idea. Dad and daughter bonding is a beautiful idea. Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. YouTube is usually my source for podcasts at work. Annoyingly, I had a Get YouTube Red to listen with my phone locked in my pocket. I know, that's annoying. Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts, or YouTube videos as podcasts as well. Like, I just listened to Steve Shives just did a, not actually Trek Actually, that I was listening to on my walk. And I'm like, it kept pausing because I kept, like, losing signal. And I'm like, I can't listen to this. So that would actually be a great, I should get YouTube Red, but not right now because money. But at some point I do want to get it. Homebody, I think it's a great idea, educational, so thank you. Oh, Mouse Pounder, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, thank you very, very much, Mouse Pounder. Also, by the way, what is your image, Mouse Pounder? Like, your image is, like, really cool. It has this, like, cool sci-fi vibe to it. I can't tell what it is, but it's very cool. But thank you very much, Mouse Pounder. Some Random. I, in fact, do a podcast live stream, Social Justice Alchemy, every Saturday. Awesome. Go check out Some Random's podcast. Some Random, send me. I think you said this last time, and I want to make sure I post it. Can you comment? And hopefully I didn't miss it last time. My apologies if I did. But can you comment when the video's over? Your link to your podcast, and I'll try and blast it out on my Twitter, because I always like to try and support more people as well, as best I can. And that goes for anyone, by the way. If you have any projects, especially if they're LGBTQ or Star Trek related, let me know. Post in the comments, and I try and do my best to at least, I can't do it for everybody and everything, but with what little platform I have, I do want to try and support others. So please feel free to share, and I will try and blast out as best I can, because I want to at least support other people with, like I said, the limited platform that I have. Alexander Miller asks, going down to these questions. By the way, Wellington, you submitted 2 questions. I see you. Look at you. Trying to hide it by bouncing off someone else's question. I'll answer both, don't worry, but I see you. Oh, by the way, I just want to click Pedro. Hi, Jesse Gender. Hope you're great, or at least better than me. I've been depressed, lost my job, and I have a newborn baby. I'm afraid and paralyzed, but your videos give me some hope. Thank you. Well, first off, Pedro, number one, thank you for your kind words, and number two, I'm really sorry that you're in that situation. I'm glad that my videos are able to give you hope, and I know the feeling about having lost your job. I just lost mine literally Friday. And I can't even imagine that being compounded by having a newborn, though I hope that your newborn is at least a source of joy in all of this. I know probably also a source of stress, but in your day-to-day. So I'm glad I'm able to provide that. And I hope that we will get through this. We will 100% get through this. And I wish you the best. Anyways, let's go to the next question. I guess mine would be this. Would you ever consider learning Klingon? No, probably not, because well, actually, okay, so, I mean, I would, but my brain was never good at learning languages. I tried to learn Spanish in high school, and it never sunk in, though my teachers weren't great, but it just never sunk in. I would love to be more bilingual or trilingual, and if I was going to devote time to learning another language, it'd probably be, one I could use in day-to-day life, probably mostly Spanish, because I just know a lot of people who speak Spanish, who seem like would be useful in my day-to-day, but, and there's also a funny story, like, I almost bought a Klingon dictionary when I was a little kid, and in, like, middle school, and my mom's like, nope, you're not getting that, because she's like, you already get bullied enough, we're not going to give you Klingon, so you go in and start speaking Klingon in school, and you'll get bullied more, which, is a bit like, Mom, come on, let me follow my passions, but then also sort of like, yeah, she probably wasn't wrong. I mean, I was kind of bullied when I was younger. Thankfully, I went to a K through 12 school, so by the time we were in, like, high school, I'd known these people for 10 years, my classmates, and we were all suddenly like, yeah, remember those times that you bullied me? That was dumb, right? And they're like, yeah, that was dumb, and we all became friends. Like, I'm friends, the people who bullied me the most, and I still have, like, stuff from that, some, like, residual, like, issues dealing from that as a kid, like, self-confidence stuff, but in terms of my relationships with those people who did that, we're good, and kids are awful sometimes. Let's see. Christina Dalliance asks, what is your favorite Data episode? Good question. I think, and it might just be recency bias because I just watched it. I just watched it, which was was it The Offspring? I think that's the one with Lal where Data has a kid. I just watched it in preparation for Star Trek Picard stuff, but I just remember going back and watching. It's like, this is a really sweet Data episode. It's heartbreaking. It's such a beautiful, like, story about him wanting to pass on and, like, trying to figure out a new way to be human, creating a relationship with, like, when she's trying to catch the ball. It's very sweet, and then it ends very tragically. And honestly, that ending of that episode kind of mirrors the ending. Mild spoilers. Close your ears for 2 seconds, but kind of mirrors what happens at the end of Star Trek Picard. And I think that The Offspring is a really just kind of fully encapsulates a lot of what Data is about. It's funny, it's quirky, it's weird, but also very sweet and very human about his search to be human, and has that sort of tragic yet weirdly hopeful ending. So I really think that The Offspring is probably one of my personal favorite Data episodes. Now, that being said, I haven't watched a bunch of Next Generation. I've been watching more Deep Space Nine and Enterprise lately, and a little bit of Voyager. Haven't been watching as much Next Generation, so I'm sure there's probably one that I would love more if I had it fresh in my mind, but I do love that episode. Jesse Agender, I'm just going to look at the chat real quick. Sorry, like I said, I want to finish some of these questions first. I only have 2 more, and then I'll interact with the chat more. But Jesse Agender, it would be so fun if you and some other cool Star Trek fan folks did a sort of Star Trek fan fiction video like the Ensign's Log via Zoom or Skype or something. All right, may I tease a little bit? I don't want to announce it yet, but this is not going to be an ongoing project, but not this Friday, but next Friday, there may be a video that is educational/comedy focused that has a couple YouTubers from around the YouTube space that you may have encountered before. And I'm really proud of it. I'm very excited for it. And sorry to tease, but I'm just so excited, and I just want it to be a fun surprise for everybody. But I'm not above being a bit of a tease. So, so yeah, if you're looking for more comedy stuff from me, that's definitely coming. I'm also aiming to do a little bit more like directly political stuff, but always with, again, aim to be positive, aim to be funny, aim to be enjoyable, but still kind of directly talking about stuff. In terms of doing more with other YouTubers, I do want to do more projects with other YouTubers, especially now that I'm free. So we'll see how that plays out. I can't say anything for sure, but I would definitely be down to doing. I have improv training. I love improv. I did improv for several years in Seattle and in Los Angeles, where I live now. I haven't done it recently because I had to move back to Los Angeles and I haven't really integrated stuff, but I have done improv and I have improv training and I love doing improv. So I 100% would be down for that. Also, I see someone in the chat is talking about Red Dwarf. I don't know what the context was, but I adore Red Dwarf. I just watched the latest movie they did, which was okay. It wasn't great, but it was solid, and I love all the other seasons of Red Dwarf. Wellington Marcus. Sorry, no, I missed Maggie. My apologies. Maggie Evans, if I was wondering what you thought of Peter David's take on Finnegan in Who Killed Captain Kirk. Did you enjoy seeing the previously only mentioned character fleshed out, and was he how you would have imagined him? So Maggie is referring to a review that actually she sponsored on my Patreon, which if you want me to do a review of something that you love, you can sponsor me on Patreon. But she asked me to review a Peter David Star Trek comic book run that was basically Dante's Inferno in Star Trek. And you also got Captain Finnegan, who is this like captain who likes to pull pranks, and he would do like weird like the buzzer handshake on Captain Kirk and everything. I actually hadn't read the comics before then, Maggie, so I actually didn't know Finnegan before that. But what I read in those comics, it was really funny. It's weird. I mean, it had Peter David. If anyone's read any of Peter David's work, Star Trek or otherwise, he has this like weird sense of humor. Like everything he does is like slightly off kilter. Like I remember there's like a Star Trek book he wrote where there's like a whole section. It was like right after Pluto stopped becoming a planet, and so he wrote this whole segment in the book about like characters arguing. It's like, is Pluto a planet? It keeps changing every century. No one knows. And he just has this like weirdly quirky, strange sense of humor in all of his books. And so Finnegan was this character who like was a practical joker, and so it was just funny to sort of like, it was a serious story of like a murder mystery, and there's like this practical joker character on the ship. So I really liked Finnegan, and I think it's always nice to see that sort of like lighthearted humor even in a serious Star Trek story. That's why I like Star Trek. It has such diversity in even its stories, not just in like there's many different people of different identities. It's just overtly a very like diverse story set that you can tell. So I liked Captain Finnegan, but I couldn't tell you what I thought about him beforehand because I didn't know him beforehand because I didn't read the comics. And last question from Wellington Marcus. Jesse, I watched iRobot for the 10th time, which, by the way, I'm reading Asimov right now for the first time. I read his whole robot series. The movie's good, but it doesn't really capture Asimov, which is funny. And had the same reaction that I've had for decades. I would, knowing all that I know now, would still have told Captain Picard to use the virus on the Borg. Excuse me. Kind of making me a Garrick to Sisko's war effort. Does that make me a bad Star Trek fan? I know you meant iRobot. Sorry, I was thinking Asimov. I was trying to figure out what the connection was to Asimov to Star Trek, but I see what you're saying, Wellington. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. So actually, I kind of want to do a whole video on this because I saw this post earlier and it got me thinking. And I don't think you are a bad Star Trek fan for thinking that, because I was kind of working it through in my head, because while I do think the ultimate choice is correct that you don't do that. I mean, it is a genocide. It is awful. And I think Star Trek Picard, the show, as we've seen in the show Star Trek Picard, has compounded the fact where we really start to dig into the idea of like, look, the Borg are victims. So I very much am on the side that the show eventually shows, like, you don't do something. It's awful. But with something like that, there is an interesting ethical conundrum there because, again, this is not the right choice, but I understand where it comes from in the sense that, like, how do you reason with the Borg? You don't. And as much as we can understand individually how the Borg are victims, as a conglomerate, they are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, and they will destroy everything, and they have the power to do so. And so what do you do with that? You can't reason with them. You can't talk to them. I mean, it goes to this question of, like, can you kill Hitler? Or better way to phrase it, sorry. If you could go back in time and kill Hitler as a baby, would you? And I feel like most people would probably say no. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but most people say no. Maybe you try to reform him. Maybe you try to give him a better life so that maybe he doesn't do something as awful like that. Just that sort of like interesting ethical conundrum. But obviously you'd want to try and change him in some way if you had that ability. But it's like, if you go back in time, you cannot change the Borg. They're going to be just as awful no matter what you do. So what do you do? And like I said, I think ethically the right choice was made to not do that, but I understand where it comes from, and I understand why that ethical dilemma is so difficult when you are met with a force that is unstoppable, unrelenting, unforgiving. What does that make you in return? Do you have to become just as dark and awful as they are to match them? And like I said, I think it's a really hard ethical question. I think Star Trek answers it the right way, that you don't do that, that you hold to your values, because if they take it from you, then what does it matter? What are you saving? But the fact that it's not a question to be immediately answered. I think it should require thought. All right, so those are the priority questions for this live stream. So we're gonna jump back to this view so that you can get me a bigger view. And we're just gonna hang out and chat. I'm gonna fill up my drink, and we're just gonna talk more about anything that you guys want to talk to in the chat. Sorry if I've missed anything. If I missed any questions in the chat that you want me to answer, feel free to ask me anything that you want. If you out in the chat have any questions for me, feel free to ask them. If I missed it and you already placed in the chat, feel free to ask again. That's totally fine. And we will have some fun. And I'm gonna fill up my drink. All right. So let's hang out, everybody. I see Professor Frank said Red Dwarf did that. They went back in time to make sure that JFK was assassinated. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that comes off of something else that people were talking about, which was that, like, Gene Roddenberry had this, like, really big thing of, like, oh, you should keep having people go back in time. You should have Spock be the one that shot JFK. And that was, like, his big, like, Star Trek story idea. Like, when they were going to do a time travel story for The Voyage Home, he was very much like, oh, I'm glad that you guys are finally doing a time travel story, but make them go back and kill JFK. I don't know why he was, like, stuck on that. It was, like, the two things that Gene Roddenberry wanted more than anything was a lot of sex in his stories and to Spock be the one to kill JFK. I don't know why those were the two things. I mean, the sex one, he was a very horny man. That's also a whole other video on its own, talking about the sex proclivities of Gene Roddenberry and cheating on his wife. For Cisco storyline, what do you say? I'm not exactly sure what you mean, like a search for Cisco storyline. Can you elaborate a little bit, Pedro? Sorry if I might have missed some context or something like that. WC Mel, I just want to acknowledge you are awesome. Thanks for sharing the space. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Mackenzie, I've been thinking a lot about my gender recently. I find my strongest personal feeling to be apathy. I don't know how to define that, and I wouldn't call myself trans. That's totally okay. I talked about this. I appeared on Secular Sexuality about a week ago, which is a wonderful podcast, and you should check it out. But we had a conversation there about gender. And gender is an evolving thing, and I actually subscribe to the idea that there are many genders as there are people. Your gender is unique to you, and yeah, we can kind of place buckets and explanations and theories and ideas on it. That's what I do on my channel. It's why I talk about the philosophy of it. But if we kind of try and separate gender from the politicization of the world right now, and how gender is always politicized, whether it's trans or whether you're a man or a woman or whatever, gender should be fun. Because gender is about your identity. It's about figuring yourself out. And identity, figuring yourself out, that's the point of life. That's what Star Trek's always about, learning more about ourselves. As Captain Archer said, like, the next great discovery isn't around the next star, it's within us. And so learning more about your gender, whether your gender is like, I'm apathetic to my gender. If your gender is apathy, that's fine and cool and wonderful. And you should be like, I wish that society didn't make it that way, that it had to be this hard thing and this static thing too. Gender changes throughout your whole life. Even a cis person, a person who's not trans, a woman who, is at 20 years old is not going to be the same how she's not going to present her gender the same way that she does at 60 years old. Our gender changes throughout our life. We just don't necessarily think about it that way. How our gender presentation changes throughout our whole life. And so, like, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff to get into that in theory and philosophy, and I'm more than happy to do that, and that's what I try and do in my videos, and it's complicated and weird, but that's kind of the fun. I wish it wasn't so politicized, but the fun of gender is figuring out. So I know it can be scary and stressful, but I hope, Mackenzie, that there's an element of kind of joy and fun in learning more about your gender. But again, that's my experience. I can't speak for everybody, so your experience is totally valid, whatever it is. Let me keep going. Have you read any of the Doctor Who Star Trek TNG crossover comics? I have. I was in London when they released the Star Trek TNG crossover comics. I actually remember being in Star Trek Doctor Who crossover comics. And so I lived in London for 6 months in college. And so it was just super cool when they were coming out. I got to go to the store and be with all these Doctor Who fans. And I'm like, look, I'm the Star Trek fan. I know the Star Trek stuff. And they were like, oh, cool. You know the half of this thing that we don't. So that was kind of fun. They're really, 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 really good. I really like the Doctor Who Star Trek TNG crossover. You should check them out. Also, the art in that is amazing. Wellington Smith. Roddenberry was kind of weird. What are you going to do? Yeah, Roddenberry was definitely had vision. I appreciate Gene Roddenberry very much. Dude was also really weird. Really, really weird. Sorry, my speech is somewhat slurring. This is kind of hitting me, so. Other than Trek, what other geek franchises do you like? I like Doctor Who and Kamen Rider. Ooh, this is a good question. From Ian. Ian, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. Correct me if I'm not. So I'm actually a huge fan of a lot of stuff. Probably my biggest fandom after Star Trek would probably be DC Comics, actually. I'm a huge DC Comics fan, especially Harley Quinn, Superman. I really, really love Superman. Just because I mean, it goes to who I am. I like characters who are aspirational, who show us the best of ourselves, who are people that we can look up to. And I don't mind when he's being deconstructed. I like sometimes when Superman is being used as a symbol of America, and sometimes America's not great. What a surprise. I'm so shocked. But, so yeah, I like when he's being deconstructed. I like when he's built up. So I'm a huge, but also DC Comics in general. I'm a huge Harley Quinn fan. I've done several videos on her. By the way, if you are not watching the new Harley Quinn animated show, what are you doing? Best DC Comics animated show besides maybe Young Justice out there right now. The Harley Quinn animated series is fantastic. What else is there? I mean, I'm a huge fan of so much. I try and read and watch pretty much everything. Doctor Who, obviously, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Battlestar Galactica, Stargate. That Stargate, oh, I need to do some videos on Stargate. I want to do some videos on Rod McKay, who's a character I really love. That's a franchise that I wish would come back. I just wonder where Stargate went, because Stargate was wonderful. So yeah, I like quite a bit. Really, if it's a geek franchise, I probably have read some of it. I'm a voracious reader, watcher, probably to a fault. That's probably why I do this, to get some of my thoughts out of my brain. But yeah. Oh, V, I see you're in the chat. Hi, secular sexuality shout out. Thank you, Jesse. Yes, you should go out and check secular sexuality. Excuse me, can't say words with alliteration right now. It's an amazing podcast, amazing hosts. I was on it, if that's the reason to get you over there, but it's a great show, and I had a great time on it, and the people on it are wonderful. V and Christy are phenomenal people. David said this before. You are one of my 3 fave Trek YouTubers, and I rarely miss one of your videos. Share your videos as well. Brava. Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. Thank you. Professor Frank. Sorry, my thing just jumped. I think I just saw Try in the... Hi, Try. By the way, I see you're in the stream. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I was because I want to make sure I didn't miss the question that I was just about to read, but I might have lost it. It's somewhere in here, and I don't know where it is. It's pronounced Owen. All right, thank you, by the way. Sorry, I didn't know I was saying my apologies if I said your name wrong. Are you a fan of anime? Do you have... Sorry, I lost the one question that I was about to answer, but some random. Are you a fan of anime? Do you have a favorite anime? I am a fan of anime. I will say I'm not the most... I don't watch a ton of anime. I do watch some here and there. I was obviously a big Dragon Ball Z fan when I was a kid because I was raised as a boy in the 90s and early 2000s, so you're going to get into Dragon Ball Z. So I love Dragon Ball Z. But if I had to pick a favorite one, and this might be, it's a bigger one, but I love Death Note. Adore Death Note so much. This is why I like Asimov. I've been reading Asimov lately, and so I kind of like him for the same reason that I like Death Note, in that it's kind of a logic puzzle story, that it sort of sets up these rules for you. Like, here are the rules of this universe, the Death Note in this case for that show, and then it spends the rest of the series playing out those simple rules in more varied and more complex ways. And so it's just a logic puzzle show where, like, my favorite episode of that show takes place over the course of 30 seconds. It's literally these two characters walking next to each other, and the character, like, it's a very dangerous conversation, and so the character has to stop and think about every single response in the conversation, about what he says next and what implications it could have, and what he has to, like, think through all these ideas. It's a 30-minute episode of a show that takes place over the course of 30 seconds, and it is riveting. Adore Death Note. So that's probably my favorite anime for that reason. Also, I will give a shout out to Revolutionary Girl Utena, which is a surreal show that talks about gender in really cool ways. The basic concept of it is this girl, she's a very, like, masculine presenting girl, and she, one day when she was a kid, she was saved by a prince as a kid, and she realized that day that she wanted to become a prince. She wanted to grow up to be a prince, even though she's a girl. But here's the thing. She wants to be a prince, specifically a prince, not a princess, yet she never stops being definitively a girl and feminine. And it's just such a complicated understanding of gender. I adore the show, and there's much more stuff in there. Like, she goes, it's a high school, it's an anime, so she's in high school, and she has to, like, duel people, things like that. But it's such a really surreal and crazy show. I adore Revolutionary Girl Utena as well. All right. Hi, Try. Try, you are watching Harley. Good. I would have unfriended you if you hadn't been watching Harley. I would have been very upset. By the way, Try is another... he's bigger than me, so you probably know him if you know me, but Triangulum Audio Studios is a wonderful YouTuber and wonderful human, so you should go check out his YouTube channel. And speaking of which, that whole JFK discussion I just had, like, I knew it beforehand, but I just was reminded of it from Try's recent wonderful video he did on the voyage home, so check out his video there. Robin for a comic book series, but I kind of, just because money's been tight even before all the current stuff going on, money's been kind of tight, so I kind of stopped buying comics as much, unless it was like something really big that I wanted, or like a collection, but I didn't see what happened to Superman Son, so I'm sad to hear that it's not great. Try. I love your new background. The coloring makes you pop, girl. It's such a great book on Trek Animated. By the way, yes, this book right here is by Ian Harvey, who I've talked to a little bit before. I've met him. Well, not met him. He did an improv show out here well, not here because I'm not in LA at the moment, but in Los Angeles, he does an improv show that I got to see, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he and I've talked on Twitter, and he's a wonderful human, and he wrote this animated book. So if you're ever curious about the animated series, that's an amazing book to read. And thank you for the thoughts on the new background. So. Charlize says, just want to say hi. Well, hi. Thank you for joining. I'm going to jump ahead to where I'm at in the chat so I can stay caught up with everybody. So in case I missed if I missed any of your questions behind here, just let me know. And sorry if I keep asking to people to repeat, but I want to try and get as many questions as I can. So there's two here that I want a quick answer. WC Mel, how do you stay so positive? Well, I will say that... I don't always stay positive, I think is really the answer. And I've shared some videos where I do talk about, like, my anxiety and my mental health stuff and things like that. But I will say, like, not every day is a good day. I do have mental health problems. I did have depression for a very long time in my life. I've never been as in that dark a place again, thankfully. Even right now, like, I lost my job, and I was actually very scared that it was going to, like, send me, but I actually feel very good, especially being near my family right now. It's not as bad as it could be. So staying positive, I don't always stay positive, but that being said, part of who I am as a person, deep down in my core, is someone who deeply, deeply believes in the best of humanity and the best of ourselves, and that we can be better and do better, and that there is a better tomorrow. And that's something that, Star Trek gave me, because, it was just something that, like, Star Trek, if I had a religious experience as a kid, it was Star Trek. And a lot of my views on the world and society, as much as I now understand Star Trek is a flawed show and it's a show written by people, it's a show that gave me so much in my outlook on the world, and that's why I love it so much. So whenever I do get down and whenever I do have a tough time, the two things I do are try to find a place to be positive and think positively about the world, think positively about myself. And that's sometimes a lot easier said than done. Sometimes I'm very scared about my future, especially right now, where things are going to go. But I try to be like, you know what? I'm here. I exist. I have people in my life that I care about. I have things that I care about. And we get to tomorrow. And we fight for tomorrow to be better. Maybe it won't be always, but we fight for tomorrow to be better in whatever way we can. And so that's what I kind of hold on to. And then I also try and make sure I, self-care and all those things. But in terms of like grand scheme outlook on life, that's what I try and hold on to. And like I said, sometimes easier said than done. Sometimes that doesn't always work, but that's what I try to do. Someone asked to sort of jump off of that sort of harder question. Someone asked a fun question. Best Mass Effect Squadmate, worst Mass Effect Squadmate. Oh, that is so hard. There's so many Mass Effect Squadmates that I love. So many. Like, Tally is wonderful. Thane is freaking fantastic. Freaking fantastic. Cannot do alliteration tonight. But if I had to give it to one, the choice is easy. It's Garrus. Garrus is my boy. He's my, in many ways, he's my boy. Believe me, Garrus and I, we boned. That was the thing that happened in my version of Mass Effect, so there you go. Worst squadmate? To be fair, and this kind of goes, everyone's upset about Rex dying. I don't really like the Krogan. I did like Grunt. Grunt was interesting, because he was kind of like an outsider within the Krogan. But Krogan kind of have the same problem for me as Klingons, in that I don't find, warrior race aliens to be the most interesting to me. They can be developed further. I do think the Klingons, especially on Deep Space Nine, were very, 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 very well developed over the course of, many, many seasons, many, many years. Like I said, especially through Martok and especially through Worf on that show. But generally, I don't find, we're warriors, we like to fight and beat stuff up. It can be an interesting juxtaposition, story-wise, but I just don't find them inherently all that interesting. So I just didn't love the Krogan for that reason. They just, like I said, there's nothing, I don't think they're bad. They just don't connect with me. And in that sense, Rex was probably my least favorite of the Mass Effect side people. What Mirror Universe Za asks, which is your favorite, The Doctor, and why? So my favorite, The Doctor, is Robert Picardo's on Voyager. I mean, come on. I know you probably meant Doctor Who Doctor. My favorite Doctor has to be David Tennant. I mean, I know that's an easy answer, but my first Doctor technically was Christopher Eccleston, but the Doctor that connected with me, I loved David Tennant so much. He meant so much to me as a kid. He was just this Doctor who, he is so full of joy and wonder and loves humanity and kind of with me in Star Trek. He likes seeing the joy in humanity, but he recognizes the darkness in humanity too. He knows when and where humanity can be dark, but he never lets it take away from his belief that humanity is a beautiful thing. And that's a kernel in all the Doctors, but you really, 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 really saw it in David Tennant quite often. And so I really liked that element of it, because it speaks to me personally. I write about politics, I write about darker stuff, I write about discrimination and things like that, and those are dark topics that affect people very drastically, and I never want to ignore that fact, but I also want to look towards what we can do, what the positive is, what the bright future is within that, what we can work towards, instead of just being like, this sucks. And sometimes there's very little you can do, but I always try and at least look towards that. And so David Tennant's Doctor really captured that for me. I also really love Matt Smith. Matt Smith was just like the manic, crazy madman in a box. Matt Smith was just he did a great job being like, he was the youngest Doctor, yet he was the oldest in feeling. Like, he felt like an old person who had the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he captured that really well. So Matt Smith has probably a close second. But every Doctor I've seen, I've loved. So let's see. Pedro asks, I really love some horror, specifically old horror. Do you like horror? I'd love to see you talking about scary stuff, even focus on the most scary episodes of Star Trek. I am a huge horror fan. I try and watch a horror movie at least once a week, if not more. I'm trying to think of like some ones I'd give suggestions right off the top of my head that I've watched recently. I'm always bad at like coming up with suggestions off the top of my head. What did I just watch? Night Shift, I think it was the one, which was very good. Whereas like this girl, she's trapped in she's a police officer on her first ever shift, and her first ever shift is to sort of stay in this old police station. It's last night open, like no one's there anymore, and so she's like, you got to watch this police station because there's a delivery coming to pick up some of the old some stuff from the police station, evidence stuff that needs to be handled carefully. So you just have to stay here. And it turns out, obviously, that the police station is haunted. It's a great movie. That's a really good, like, sort of small one that I watched recently. The Endless. That's a really good one. I almost don't want to say anything about The Endless. The Endless is a great horror movie. I'll have to do a video, like, talking about horror movies, because I'm always, when people, like, ask me to come up with suggestions of movies off the spot, I can never, like, think of any good ones. But I should make a list of horror movies. And actually, if you guys like if you guys are interested in my movie taste, I do have a Letterboxd where I rate every movie that I've ever seen. I'm going to try and do more like 1 or 2 sentence reviews of movies that I watch. But if you're ever curious about what movies that I love, I do have a Letterboxd over there. VlogMN asks, where was that? Oh gosh, I keep jumping ahead. VlogMN asked a really cool question. Opinions on the Dark Crystal TV show. Fantastic. For those of you who don't know, there's a Dark Crystal TV show called Age of Resistance. It was so good. It was a story. The only thing that I had against it was, and it's kind of inherent in the thing, but it kind of threw me a couple times, was they did such a great job at the show with making everything feel expansive. Like this huge world of like all these intricate politics. And then with amazing puppets. And like, oh my God, the Skeksis, as much as I hate them, I love watching every scene with the Skeksis. I was like, this is phenomenal. They are amazing characters. But they did a great job creating this huge expansive like Game of Thronesian like level of intrigue. But for some reason, it always felt like, but this race of the Gelflings are like 50 people. Which, not to say like, any discrimination, any type of thing like that matters, but it just felt like this weird disconnect, and maybe just because I'm, it was so clearly like building off of Game of Thrones lore, or Game of Thrones the show, which has like, look at all these people that are affected in the land. It sort of did this great job creating grand sweeping things, and so it's just weird to be like, yeah, talk about this kingdom, and there's like 50 people in that kingdom, so it just it always like the scale felt a little bit off to me, but. In terms of like logistics, like we're gonna move all these people and all these things, it just the scale felt a bit off. But that's my literal only negative, and that's such a small quote. Otherwise, it's a fantastic show. I love Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance, and I'm so excited. I don't know if they've announced that they got a season 2. Actually, I hope they do because it was such a good show. Let's see. Jesse Ginger, I enjoyed your Final Fantasy live stream very much. Would you consider doing an STO live at some point? Well, okay, so here's another thing, too. I am planning on... I want to do more gaming live streams, but I also know that it kind of is weird, just trying to, like, build my YouTube and everything and make sure it grows. It is kind of weird to have, like, a Final Fantasy live stream in there. So I'm debating, and probably will start within the next week again, now that I have time, to do a to do a Twitch channel. So I'm probably going to start a Twitch channel in the near future, and I'll promote it and talk about it when that does happen. But I am planning on doing a Twitch channel where I can play more. In terms of the Star Trek Online side of that, I will be honest, I do want to get into it because the lore of Star Trek Online is super fun. Every video that I see on Star Trek Online on lore sounds really cool. Like, oh, these are really awesome Star Trek stories that I have always wanted. And they get cool voice actors to be in there too. But when it comes to like MMO games, they're always so grindy. And I know Star Trek Online is no exception to that rule. And for me, that's a little bit hard. I like games that have a much more like story focused and like have much more moment to moment gameplay that isn't like just grinding. And so I've tried to get into Star Trek Online before, but it's just a little bit hard for me too. Maybe I'll give it another chance. Maybe if I start my Twitch channel, that'll be something that I at least try to do. Also I know you asked, I'm drinking not Bailey's Irish cream, but I'm drinking Irish cream. So, and I think Wellington let you know. So. Jay asks, like the Orville. I do. I actually really do like the Orville. As unfortunate as the Orville has unfortunately gotten into this unfortunate place in Trek fandom conversation where it's used as like this, like, oh, look, the Orville is so much better than modern Star Trek. Real Star Trek fans like the Orville. And it just kind of became this pawn, annoyingly, in this, like, real Trek fans and toxic Trek fans and all this jazz. And that's kind of unfortunate for it. But as a show, I enjoy it quite heavily. I think season 1 for me was like comfort food. It was like, oh, it's basically Next Generation with a bit more jokes in it. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Then second season, I thought vastly improved. It definitely is clear that they want to tell more dramatic stories with it and do more things. And I really enjoy it. I think the risks they took in season 2 of The Orville are so much fun. I enjoy it. It's definitely a much more like fun show that I can just pop on an episode of, unlike Picard or Discovery, which I love Star Trek Picard and Discovery, but it's hard for me to like just watch an episode randomly, just because they're serialized. So The Orville kind of has that going for it. But what I will say about The Orville is I hope, and it sounds like they're going to try and do this for season 3. Everything I've heard about season 3 is that they're aiming to do this. I wish it would take more risks, because it is very much like an homage to the Next Generation. It's so aping off of that. And not to say that it doesn't have its own identity, because it has built that, but it is very much just like building off of Next Generation. It doesn't really take a ton of risks in terms of concept outside of that. Some storylines do, but in terms of concept and style, it's very much Next Generation, which, again, I love. I like having a modern version of Next Generation. But while I think The Orville probably has a much more steady quality, like every episode you know that it's going to be at least like a good quality episode. And then you watch Discovery or Picard where you know it can go like this. Like some episodes are fantastic, some episodes are great, but some episodes are bad. But to me, I almost always appreciate that. Sometimes it's more interesting for me to like watch things that are bad but at least had high aspirations. I find that just as interesting. Like, for example, Batman v Superman. Terrible movie. Every wrong decision was made in Batman v Superman. Like, every wrong decision was made. Except for, there are a couple moments that are actually well done in Batman v Superman, I will argue. But overall, bad movie. But that movie has such a specific vision and intention. It's not like other blockbusters, where it's like, oh, you could see it was made by committee, and like a billion people had notes, so it kind of became a bland thing. It's like, no, Batman v Superman is exactly what it wanted to be, and I find that so fascinating. I don't think there's a movie I've talked about more with friends than Batman v Superman. I talked about it for like 3 or 4 years after it came out. So it's a bad movie, but I find things that take risks to be much more interesting. And I'll probably do a video at some point on my channel about Batman v Superman, just because I have so many thoughts on it. So bringing it back to the Orville, though, I want the Orville to take more risks. That's not to say I don't enjoy it. I really love it. I think it's great. I enjoy it quite heavily. I don't believe in like this whole like it has to be better than, like, it's unfair to compare it, really, honestly, to Star Trek Picard. It's different. It's a different show. But I just I think it's just it needs. I want it to take more risks, and I'm just checking the time real quick. Apologies. Cool. All right. Let's see more questions. Try. You say, I don't think it's like Trek at all. I appreciate it for what it is. I agree. And that's kind of what I was saying. I do think it is very much like trying to do a pastiche homage to The Next Generation, but it is kind of unfair to a degree to compare, like, comparing it to Star Trek Picard or Discovery. It's like it does them all a disservice if you compare them, like, take them on their own merits. And like I said, I think Orville's a great show. I have a lot of fun with it. I enjoy it quite heavily. I think the characters are really well done. I have problems with some of its stuff here and there. In terms of like politics of it and storylines of it, like some of its trans stuff that they try to adjust, I don't think it's bad, but could have been much better. Kind of gets muddled in the execution. But that being said, take it on its own merits rather than comparing it to something else. RGD, have you ever watched Stargate or Babylon 5 Best Series? I have watched both. And I'm a huge fan of both. I love Babylon 5 and I adore Stargate. In fact, honestly, whenever I need comfort food, like I'm just like in a really bad mood, I'll honestly turn to Stargate Atlantis over like any Star Trek show sometimes. I love Stargate Atlantis. Like all Stargate shows are great. I even like Universe. I am someone who will fight to the death for Stargate Universe. But Stargate Atlantis, that's such a great show. I love it so much. Babylon 5, when I was younger, I think I own all the DVDs still. Babylon 5 was a show that I came across and I binged the entire series in like a month. And that includes all the movies they did and the spin-off series, Crusade, I think it was called. I literally watched all of it. Babylon 5 is fantastic. It definitely got its own identity. This is, again, kind of talking about the Orville. It's same sort of situation here. Babylon 5 sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly gets compared to Deep Space Nine. I do think they both kind of formed their own identities later on, but I think Babylon 5 is a fantastic show and definitely one of my favorite shows. In fact, maybe I should do a rewatch of that sometime soon. Ooh, now I'm kind of hankering to watch the Babylon 5. Maybe I'll watch that tonight, actually. All right, Tom Moore, Justy Gender. Have you seen fan film Star Trek Horizon? Well worth a watch for any Enterprise fan. I have seen parts of it. I haven't sat down and watched all of it. Watched Horizon. I know of it. Actually, when I was younger, after Enterprise got canceled, I got huge into fan films. I loved New Voyages and then Hidden Frontier. By the way, no one talks about. By the way, every time someone brings up fan films, it's always like Horizon or Star Trek Continues or Renegade or Axanar, which is its own conversation. But no one talks about Star Trek Hidden Frontier. Is anyone in the chat Star Trek Hidden Frontier fans? Anyone even know what I'm talking about when I say that? Anyone curious about that? Yeah, and I see some people talking about how like DS9 stole from Babylon 5. Yeah, there is that story that like Straczynski pitched the show to Paramount, then went and got it somewhere else, and then they kind of used it as DS9. But there's no, from my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone missed it. Maybe I missed it, I mean. But I don't think there was any like like actual fact on that. And to be fair, even if they did steal it, that's number one, wrong. They shouldn't have done that. And number two, in terms of as a fan of the show, I think both shows kind of formed their own identity, so I think it's okay for me to like both. I mean, your how background stuff influences your liking of a show certainly is fair. But for me, I think I enjoy both. I like both, and if they did steal, I hope they get held accountable for that at some point. So, yeah, Rick Berman. Yeah, I have many thoughts on Rick Berman. James DeRosa says, I wouldn't put anything past Rick Berman. He's a terrible human. Yeah, Rick Berman is, he's a thing. I think someone else talked about it earlier in the chat, but Renegade Trek, Renegade Cut, is another YouTuber, did a great video on Berman called Berman Trek. That if you're ever curious more about Rick Berman, he does a great dive on Rick Berman. But yeah, Rick Berman, terrible human. So what are you gonna do? He helped Star Trek, I guess, so whatever. I'll just kind of have to live with that. All right. Have you ever seen the video Lily Orchid made a few years ago? I cannot speak. No more drinking for me, so apologies if I'm slurring a little bit. Have you ever seen the video Lily Orchid made a few years ago where she argues that the word queer is a slur and it should stop being used? What are your thoughts on it, if so? Really funny, actually, that you bring that up, because I was talking earlier in the stream about, I was sitting around the fire pit with my dad last night, and we were talking about, like, queer issues, and when I brought up the term queer and how, like, for him, he's not LGBTQ in any way, but for him, queer was a slur, like you called someone queer. And I used to work at an LGBTQ magazine, and we would have marketing meetings, which marketing meetings are the most boring thing in the world, but one interesting thing of it was they did like breakdowns on different aspects of LGBTQ culture, and you find that there is a distinct generational divide over the word queer. That people of an older generation typically think the word queer is a slur because it was used as a slur against them. People of my generation and younger, so like 20s, maybe in their 30s, but 20s and younger, view queer as a term to use for ourselves as an identity. Personally for me, and I think all thoughts on that are valid, especially like if the word queer was flung at you as a slur, it is 100% understandable and acceptable that you view that word with contempt. Like, if a word is being used to harm you, it is 100% okay to not like that word. So I would never put it onto somebody. For me, though, I like the word queer for many different reasons, because when we say LGBTQ, that acronym can keep going, LGBTQIA, and then there's also some people that say LGBTQ asterisk to like put everyone else in there, and it's like, but how offensive is that if you're in the asterisk, And I like queer because it's a word that's like, you may be gay, you may be lesbian, you may be trans, you may be bisexual, asexual, intersex, all of these things, but we as a group are queer. We are one group in community together because we have a shared fight together. And I think that unity is, again, something a Star Trek ideal, like coming together despite our differences. Because you see, like, even now, like, this is not to say that a lot of gay men are doing this, but there are elements of, gay male culture that have sort of said, like, let's forget trans people. There's too much to deal with them. Like, we got our acceptance, we're accepted by society, so we can kind of forget trans people. Like, again, that's not saying most, that's not saying all, that's just saying that there is an element of that. You see that with, like, log cabin Republicans, for example, who don't really fight for trans rights. When trans people were some of the people to stand up for gay rights, like that happened at Stonewall. Trans people were right on the front lines, and trans people are almost always, on the front lines with our other members of our community to fight alongside them for their rights. And so I just like the idea of queer because it just highlights our unity as a community, as opposed to sort of breaking us up into identities. Those identities are important. It's important to talk about uniqueness. Like Star Trek always says, it's important to talk about our differences, but our differences should be what brings us together. So that's basically my thought on that. That's just a long and short. There's a much longer conversation on that, but that's sort of my quick thoughts on it. So, a Q-munity. I love it. Now I'm just thinking Q from Star Trek. So, let's see. Someone was asking, do you play tabletop RPGs? I do, not as much as I would like. One of my closest friends and best friends, he lives in Minnesota. He is the closest person and probably the person I love more than anyone else in the universe. Like even more than partners sometimes that I've had, but I won't say his name, but he does a ton of tabletop RPGs, and there's a part of me I want to move to Minnesota just because I like Minnesota so much, and part of it's also too is I would love to be in his community of tabletop RPGs because I do really love tabletop RPGs, but because I've been so busy with my life in the past few years between full-time job, doing this YouTube channel, and then I do freelance work. I'm just trying to make money and stay afloat and also build my career right now in my life, for better, for worse. I just don't have as much extra time, which, I probably should take more time for myself. But sorry, that got on a whole tangent. I apologize. But I do play tabletop RPGs. I love them. I wish I did them more. And I'm hoping to someday live in a place that is not LA. LA does have a strong tabletop RPG community, but LA I just hate in terms of a city. So I want to move out of LA at some point, and hopefully get to a place where I can find that community of tabletop RPG players that I can really feel my community. Sorry, that got wrapped up in other stuff. Apologies. Sorry, that's other stuff going on in my life that kind of crept into that question, but I kind of weirdly tie it to tabletop RPGs in my mind, so apologies on that. Have you ever met any Star Trek actors in person at cons or events? I have. Actually, we were talking about Martok earlier, I think. But I went to college in Ithaca, New York, where there's Ithaca College. That's where I went to college. And I worked at a Starbucks while I lived there. And J.G. Hertzler, who plays Martok, lives in Ithaca, New York, and would occasionally come into the Starbucks. And I would always try not to fangirl out and be like, oh my God, it's J.G. Hertzler, it's Martok. So I do think I have met Martok in person. I've served him coffee, and I've said hi to him and talked to him. But I think we talked about, I think one of the things we talked about, there's a cheese festival in, in Monroe, New York, and he was talking about it. So we talked about a cheese festival. So I've talked about cheese with Martok. Other actors I met, you can see it in my other videos, other live streams. I have a picture with me. I met William Shatner briefly. I met, why am I blanking on her name? She plays Michelle Burnham. I'm blanking. Sonequa Martin Green. I met Sonequa Martin Green. She was super kind. I only had a few seconds with her. I got to ask her a question about what she views, how she views a trans experience within Star Trek Discovery. And she answered so eloquently. But she was so affirming, kind, nice, the sweetest human I ever met. William Shatner, I was like, hi, I'm going to take a picture with you. Bye. Okay, see ya. Which I understand, the dude's he's William Shatner. He can't spend time with a bunch of people. I get it. But Sonequa Martin Green, I think, is one of the sweetest people of all time. I met Doug Jones briefly. He did a Shape of Water signing for the book version of Shape of Water. So I got to meet him briefly. Just said hi, thank you, you mean so much to me, I love Saru. And he said thank you. Was too expensive. But I did get a picture with Tim Russ, and he was also very nice. We got to talk for a few minutes, and he was a very sweet human. And I think that's about everything. I think those are all the Star Trek actors that I've met in my life. I might have met a few more here and there, but I'm blanking on them, but those are sort of the big ones. But like I said, the one who I got the most time with and to talk with briefly. Oh, duh, I'm an idiot. Mary Chiefo. I met in a bar once. I was at a play with my friend and roommate, and my roommate was just like, "Hey, that's Mary Chiefo in there," and we're like, Mary Chiefo. I was like, and I'm always kind of someone number one, I already have social anxiety. I'm always very much I don't want to go talk, and so and when it's an actor or something like that, I'm like, I don't want to bother them. Let them have their space and time, and and let them enjoy themselves. I don't want to be like, hi, I like Star Trek Discovery, you're great in that. So I don't be that person. But my roommate is very much no, you go in there, you network, you do your thing. My roommate is a wonderful human, by the way. He always pushes, I'm very much someone's I don't want to network. I don't want to talk to other people. I don't like it. It's awful. Why would they even talk to me? I'm terrible. Why would you ever want to do something with me? But he's always someone that pushes me. He's no, your stuff is good. You should network with other creators and reach out to them and see them. So I appreciate him for that. But he was we're going to go in and we're going to talk to Mary Chiefo. And I had a wonderful conversation with her and her friend Jessica. Hopefully I'm going to say her name, Jessica Lynn Verdi, who she does her own Twitch streaming. She does stuff with Hyper RPG. And I got to meet both of them, and I'm so glad because they're both wonderful humans. And I talked to Jessica a little bit here and there, and Mary Chiefo follows me, and she remembered me from I did a video on Laurel, and she remembered the video. It was I was so honored. And so they were Mary Chiefo I met, and she was phenomenal, and I had a wonderful conversation with her, and she legitimately, and I understand this, I'm so glad she does, but I could understand you talk about Star Trek all day because it's your job. And so I could see her getting tired, but no, I asked her, Laurel means so much to me. And she was like, oh my gosh, let's talk about Laurel because she's amazing. Mary Chiefo has legitimate, joy for her character, which something you can say about pretty much, I think, all the modern Star Trek actors today, especially on Discovery. But all of them, I think, have such, a joy for the show and what it means. And that's part of why I love it. I love it because I think. Sorry, I should get back to the chat because I want to make sure I answer some people's questions. But I think one of the things that I really love about this age of Star Trek, and one of the things that really connects with me about Star Trek Discovery, is I love it when a show has people behind the scenes who are just kind people. That weirdly matters a lot to me. Like, I can still enjoy a show if the people behind the scenes are like whatever, or they're just doing a job, or they're like. But when I get to see like people like Star Trek Discovery, where the actors they talk about what the show means, they connect with the fans, they connect with each other. That means a lot to me. As someone who enjoys the show, it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So yeah, it was just very nice to see Mary Chiefo was like that. Hey, Council of Geeks, I just saw you jumped in. Nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. So let's see. I'm just checking in on the chat. See. I know what social anxiety is like. I tried to comment here in chat earlier, but I'm afraid I freaked out and ran away. Oh, I totally understand. Don't worry. Number one, this is a safe space. So you are always welcome to comment and chat, and everyone here from everything I've seen is welcoming and affirming. So you are always welcome in this space, but also don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like if you have the energy to be social. This is a space that's supposed to have fun. It's supposed to be positive. We're supposed to enjoy ourselves here. So, it's totally okay if you can't chat. If it's causing you too much anxiety, take care of yourself first. That is the most important thing. So you're always welcome to chat. I always love to see your thoughts, Juanita, but also I totally understand, and don't beat yourself up if you don't feel comfortable chatting. That is perfect. If you're just sitting here watching the video and enjoying me ranting at a screen for an hour or so, I totally understand. John, thank you, John. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. And you say, I can't stick around, but I wanted to pop in and send lots of love and support. You have such great positivity and it's appreciated. Thank you so much. I really, 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 really appreciate that. Council, I may stay quiet because I'm drunk and I need to try and not be dumb. Hey, you missed it because you probably just came in, but I've been drinking too. So if you're going to say something dumb, I'm going to say something dumb, Council. So you're not alone in being kind of mildly inebriated, so don't worry. By the way, I know, most of you probably, because our channels probably have a lot of cross-pollination, but for those of you who don't know, Council of Geeks is a fantastic person and fantastic YouTuber who does discussions on Doctor Who and basically all of nerddom, and also does talk about LGBTQ issues. So if you enjoy me, you'll definitely enjoy Council of Geeks. So if you haven't heard of Council of Geeks, go subscribe because their content is wonderful. Also, Time Lord Gina says, could you collab with Council of Geeks? Maybe I already have, and maybe there is a project that both of us will be, I'll be releasing on my channel later on. Sorry to tease. I was talking about it earlier, but maybe we already are. Sorry, I'm a tease. Apologies. Some random Jesse Gender is also drunk. She's running the live stream. Yep, there you go. KevZ247, $20. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Mirror Universe Zot, are you a lister or a rimmer, Eve? Oh God, lister or rimmer? I will say, I am probably, if I had to pick personality type, I'm probably more lister. Because I'm very much I'm kind of neurotic and I have Asperger's, and the way that my Asperger's works out is I like having lists, and I like being very precise about things, and I like crossing things off the list and being obsessive about stuff. And that's probably more of a lister quality than a rimmer quality. That's not necessarily a good thing. I will say I probably do enjoy watching Lister more as a character on Red Dwarf. If anyone doesn't know, I'm watching Red Dwarf, or we're talking about Red Dwarf when I talk about those characters. I think Lister's a much more fun character. Rimmer, he's a fine character to hinge the show on, and nothing against the people who like him, but I never loved the lovable schlub character. They don't connect with me as much. In fact, the Crichton is probably the character on Red Dwarf who I connect with the most out of everybody. Who's I'm here to serve you and trying to do everything best and give for other people, sometimes at the detriment to myself. That's something that I really kind of connect with. So yeah, if I connect with anyone on Red Dwarf, it would be Crichton. I enjoy watching Lister more. Rimmer's cool, and I'll be honest, I don't really love Cat. The problem I hate with Cat's fine. I just thought the joke of like, he's a cat person, so he does cat things. The joke kind of gets a little bit old for me after a point. Not to say he doesn't have stand-up moments, and the actor's great too. But I just never loved Cat, just because I thought the joke kind of ran thin after a while. Let's see. More blood wine. Oh, you're right. You know what? Everyone's saying the glass is empty. I know I said I'm slurring. Okay. Here's the deal. I'm going to stay on the stream for about another 15, 20 minutes. So, that's probably enough time to have another drink. Just know, if this is what you want, I might be slurring my words a little bit more. So, I'm going to do it, but you asked for this live stream. So, this is on you. Okay. So, if I become incoherent, like, Star Trek is great. It's like, what are we talking? Yeah, Dax. I like Dax. Have we talked about Dax before? So yeah, if I end up like that, it's your fault out there. Some people are saying they're stoned, so that is wonderful. You're a rimmer for sure, dog. You're a glorious tease. Do it again, says Council. I'll tease over and over again. Let's see. So sorry I missed the beginning of this. Number one, Jeffrey Willis, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. So sorry I missed the beginning of this, but your openness through your transformative experience is an inspiration for many who don't see themselves represented. So proud of you. Sorry, not a question. That's totally okay. Thank you so much. That's the hope with my videos. Like, my videos are very personal essays, and so I hope that my videos are able to like connect, because that's the point. Like, the goal of the videos that I make are kind of like what Star Trek is about, trying to find universality in the specific. Like, my journey is my own, and I can't speak for anyone else, and I can kind of give you philosophy and theory and ideas and trends and things like that, and how systems work. That's what I'll explain in my videos, and I'll try and connect those systems and ideas to my personal experience, and it just sort of connects and helps you understand me better, and hopefully, understand yourself a little bit better. So, Jesse said, I might be slurring, lols. You know what? Dang it, Wellington. Why? Let's see. What was the question there? I just saw another question that I liked. Time Lord Gina, if you could be working on the Federation ship Starbase with all of the cast, which one would you pick? Ooh. That's a hard one. Oh God. TNG might be a bit stuffy for me. I don't think I'd like hanging out with all of them, except for Riker. I'd hang out with Riker any day, and Captain Picard I'd love to talk to, but I wouldn't like hang out with Picard. TOS might be fun. I would love to hang out with Spock. Kirk seems like he's a cool dude. McCoy I'd just get into all the arguments with. Yeah, it might be TOS. But Deep Space Nine, I'd like to. Deep Space Nine probably be the most personal. Bashir seems like he'd be fun. O'Brien seems like he'd be fun. Cisco seems like he'd be fun too. Kira, I could get into like really cool, interesting arguments with. Jetsi I'd hang with. Yeah, Deep Space Nine, okay. Voyager gets a little bit stuffy too, though I'd hang out with Seven and the Doctor, but they wouldn't necessarily be as fun. They kind of get full of themselves a little bit. But I think I'd be interested in hanging out with them. Enterprise, everyone seems so... I'm rewatching Enterprise now, and I love Enterprise, but everyone's like kind of like, we don't know anything. We're kind of silly and dumb and making silly decisions. I watched A Night in Sickbay last night, which... That's an episode of Enterprise for you. But I do like Enterprise, but yeah, I don't know if I'd hang out with any of them, except for maybe Tucker. Tucker would be fun. Archer is kind of like, I'm the best friend captain. Discovery seems like they'd be fun. People on Picard have way too much baggage, so probably not the Picard cast, though I do like that show, but they have a lot of baggage. I could hang out with just Saru seems like be fun. Michael Burnham on a good day seems like be fun. Tilly seemed like she's so much fun to hang out with, and like her in it. I'd hang out with like the bridge crew of Discovery, who we see in that one episode, the Daedalus Project. Because they seem like they have fun, like doing games and stuff and everything like that. I'd hang out with like the non-main crew of Discovery because they seem like they got it together. But if I had to pick like main cast, I'd probably pick Deep Space Nine just because Jadzia, Bashir, and O'Brien would seem like they'd be cool, and I'd kind of get along with probably everyone else too. Have you played any other Bioware games like Dragon Age or KOTOR? What's your favorite party members from those of you have? I didn't play Dragon Age. I wanted to, but like the more turn-based fighting in that game to kind of turn me off. Not that it's turn-based, but it's much more like roll dicey. Same with KOTOR. I did play KOTOR. I liked KOTOR quite a bit. I enjoyed it a bunch. But the disc that I had, I bought it used, and it was scratched when I was a kid. And so I got to the Jedi Council part of that game, and it froze and would not work. And I was poor and could not afford another copy of the game and could not return it at that point, so I never got further in KOTOR, which is sad. I do know the twist in KOTOR, and I loved KOTOR from what I played of it, but I never got to finish it. Maybe I should go back and play it now. Yeah, I could. All right. Professor Frank, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Love you, especially that you also love Red Dwarf. I love Red Dwarf. Red Dwarf is so much fun. I know Council of Geeks is actually promoting other people, but Council of Geeks is doing reviews of Red Dwarf. I think Council, if you're still on the stream, I think you just reviewed Series 12 over on the Break Room of the Geeks. I haven't watched it yet. I'm planning on watching it probably this evening, actually, so I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on Series 12. But I love Red Dwarf, and if you're looking for Red Dwarf content right now, check out Council of Geeks. Why am I blanking on it? Break Room of the Geeks. Check out Council of Geeks main page too, but Council of the Geeks has a side channel called Break Room of the Geeks that is also wonderful. And just did some Red Dwarf stuff. Pedro just asked, do your Captain Kirk impression. All right. Oh, God. All right. Well, you can kind of see my Captain Kirk impression in my latest, the Klingon video did. The main character in that, the like fictional captain, is like my Captain Kirk impression, but I love doing impressions. I want to get into voice acting work. Sorry, I'm drunk. Now I'm just saying life aspirations. I would love to do more voice acting work. If anyone's seen my live streams of me reading my old fan fiction, you know that I enjoy doing impersonations and voices. Let's see if I can do a Captain Kirk. This is going to be bad, so feel free to make fun of me in the stream there. What should I say as Captain Kirk? Captain's log, stardate 375.64823. This is Captain Kirk of the USS Enterprise. We're out here on the edge of Federation space, ready to explore. Spock is noticeably distant. I think about him often. And this is in no way a homosexual relationship, in case anyone back at Starfleet Command is thinking about that. I'm sorry, that's the best I can do right now. I hope that wasn't too terrible. Council of Geeks, when you tweeted about a night in sickbay, my first thought was that sounds like the title to an erotic doctor fanfic. I mean, not wrong. Not wrong at all. I mean, oh God, that episode, Council, if you haven't watched that episode, it's a joy. There's literally a scene in it. I like watch the whole episode is like revolves around the main like plot of it is the like political plot is like Captain Archer went down to a planet and his dog peed on a tree, so people like on the planet were like very upset, rightfully so. I mean, your dog pees on like a historical landmark. Yeah, the people are a bit conceited, but your dog peed on a historical landmark. Like, be a better diplomat, Archer. You're a crappy diplomat. And like the whole episode's him being like, man, I don't want to apologize. They are awful people. How dare they ask me to apologize? I'm like, Archer, get over yourself. And then the rest of the episode is like him dealing with his beagle being sick, and so he like hangs out in sickbay and has to deal with like the doctor, and then has like a strange dream where he imagines his dog's funeral, and it then has like weird like sexual tension with his first officer. So the dream is like him flirting with his first officer while the doctor talks about his dog's death. And overtly, it's like sexual tension is a big, and cheese farts, because the dog has like a cheese fart ongoing joke on the show. It's a weird episode, enjoyable. Like it's one of those like so bad it's good episodes. But it's a weird episode. All right, let's see what else we got. A Night in Sickbay, that episode basically killed Star Trek on broadcast television. Yeah, unfortunately, probably true. Between that and Nemesis, which is sad because after Nemesis, Enterprise finally got good. Season 3 and 4 of Enterprise are I would put season 3 and 4 of Enterprise as like right up there with any of the best of Trek, like right up there with the best of TNG, best of Deep Space Nine, They're fantastic, and it's sort of sad that the first two. I mean, I'm doing my Enterprise rewatch, and there are some gems in Enterprise, like Shuttlepod 1 is great, the Andorian incident is great, Shockwave Part 1 is great. So there are gems in season 1 and 2 of Enterprise that I really, really like, and I do like the characters. I do like that they try to make the characters a bit more flawed than most of the other shows. Like all the other shows, the characters, other than Deep Space Nine, most of the other characters in the other shows are pretty decent people, but like in terms of like doing their job. Whereas Enterprise crew, they were kind of figuring it out. So I did enjoy that aspect. But a lot of the other parts of the first 2 seasons of Enterprise is just like, these are fine. They're like fine to bad. They're like either bad episodes or just like, that was an episode that existed. But then you get to season 3 and 4 and it's phenomenal. And I love Enterprise. So there you go. I wanted an interesting video by Steve Shives. Mackenzie said, I wanted an interesting video by Steve Shives about why ultra-conservatives may like Star Trek Beyond just wish fulfillment, even though it's not what the creator intended. He did do a video, I thought. Oh, you did watch it. You said you watched it. Yeah, his Steve Shives' video on why do conservatives like Star Trek is great. I think he makes some really excellent points. So if you want to like have a good discussion on that, he did a great job in that video. Favorite Mirror Universe character? Ooh, I would have to say, I think Alex Xavier Steele answers my same answer. Mirror Kira. Mirror Kira is amazing. You could tell Nana Visitor is like so enjoying herself in that episode, or all the episodes that Mirror Kira appears in, and she's, as much as it falls into the as much as those that the conceit falls into the like evil bisexual, like, oh, all evil people are bisexual people are evil because they're morally ambiguous and things like that. So I don't like that she kind of falls in that like evil people are bisexual trope. That being said, she is bisexual and I do enjoy it. So sometimes, like, you know what? Forgive me. I can enjoy some stereotypes sometimes. Kenzie, that is wonderful. Let's see. Wellington, don't get me to sing the Enterprise theme song because I will. And I'm bad at it. My singing is bad. JS, can you impersonate Janeway? Ooh, she's a little bit harder because she's a little bit brusque. Let's see. I never actually tried to do Janeway. I'm trying to like, how would I get? Because she has that like kind of like very like, it's like this like deep voice, but still like kind of like gravelly. No, I don't know if I could do it. I'd have to think on it. I'd have to like work on that actually. Sorry that I can't do it on camera. I'm just like, I don't know if I can get to her, honestly. Oh God, fun will now commence. I would like to hear your Morgan Freeman impression. All right, that one I can do. Let's see. Hello, I am Morgan Freeman, here to narrate your life, because my voice is the perfect narrating voice for any documentary that you would ever enjoy. This is Morgan Freeman, here to talk to you in a very soothing, calm, collected manner. It is why that I don't know why he's going up at the end of his words. That's my drunken Morgan Freeman impression, so I hope that's it's been a long road getting from there to here. It's been a long time, but my time is finally here, and I will see my dreams come alive at last. I will touch the sky, and they're not gonna hold me down no more. No, they're not gonna change my mind, and I've got faith of the heart. There you go. Are you happy now? I hope you enjoyed that. You could impersonate Robert Bellatran by just not giving a shit, lol. Yeah, Robert Bellatran did not give a crap about Voyager. Every time, it's almost funny. I read any interview with Robert Bellatran, he's just like, yeah, the writers didn't know what they were doing, and I was just here for the paycheck. I'm like, you know what? Fair. We all gotta take jobs. As much as I would love that you, like, took the thing that I loved more seriously, we all gotta pay the bills, we all gotta do a job, and I understand Chakotay was not necessarily treated the best on that show, and could be considered this is not necessarily for me to say as someone who's not Native American, but probably decently problematic portrayal of Native Americans, considering he was amalgamation of Native American culture as opposed to having an actual identity. He's just like, yeah, he's a Native American. That's a thing, right? So yeah, he was not well handled. So I'm going to hang up for another about 10 minutes or so before we sort of wrap up. Sorry, my hair is all messed up. Sorry, this is me being somewhat conceited. I worry about my hair way too often. So we'll hang up for another 10 more minutes, and then I'm probably going to wrap out just because I haven't had dinner yet, and I need it now because of all this. I need to get some food in my stomach. Gotta say, I would really love to know if they follow it through what was written in the first Star Trek Discovery book. Detmer is German. She's from Dusseldorf. I don't think they ever bring that up. That's a good book, by the way. I don't know if they ever bring it up again. I really hope they... I mean, I hope that they, in Season 3 of Discovery, and I think they have a chance to, considering that they are in the future. Sorry, spoilers. But I really hope they flesh out those characters. In fact, if I was to pitch a... maybe I should save this, but I do want to, there's an element of me that I do want to write for Star Trek someday, or like my dream would be, I just want to contribute something to Star Trek. We'll see if that ever actually happens. Hell, I would, honestly, the attainable dream is like if someone at Nickelodeon would let me just voice a red shirt on the Star Trek animated kid show. I would love that. I would love so much to be a voice of an animated like red shirt on the Star Trek kid show. I would love that so much. But anyways, back to my original point. Sorry, drunken tangents. But I really hope in Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery that they develop those characters. And the reason I brought that up is, the reason that I was talking before is, if I was to pitch a script to Star Trek Discovery, it would be an episode called Upper Decks. Which would be an episode where all the main cast of Discovery, like Burnham, Saru, and everyone are kind of stuck on a planet with something going on. And so you have Owo, you have Detmer, you have Bryce, and I forget the other gentleman who's on the main bridge up there who gets a lot of stuff to do but isn't like a character. But it would be all the characters trapped on a planet, and then all the cast members that we don't get to see are stuck on the bridge, and they actually have to be like figuring out the situation. So it kind of be like an inversion of Lower Decks, where we get to like see the actual bridge crew doing things, but it's developing characters that we never get to see that much on Star Trek. So if I was to pitch an episode to Star Trek Discovery, I would have to flesh out the actual story of that, like what was actually happening, but the basic concept would be that. So that would be my concept. No one steal that, please. If you ever have a chance to work for Discovery. Or steal it, get a job on Discovery, and then hire me. That's what you do. Going to give away all my Star Trek pitches in my live streams. Oh, well. Watch any good non-DC comic cartoon shows recently? I mean, this is still a big franchise, but I've been watching Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and oh my gosh, the number one, Ahsoka is wonderful. The recent final 4 episodes that they're doing in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, fantastic. I adore those episodes and the Ahsoka in general. So that's really good. I'm trying to think if I watched anything else kids show recently that I watched. I'm excited for the She-Ra season finale or series finale that's coming out. So I'm very excited for that. I think She-Ra is excellent. So screw the establishment, pitch that to Steve Shives and Jason Harding as a YouTube series. It'd be fun. I would enjoy that quite a bit. What do you think of the other DC Universes shows? Hey, by the way, Ringworld, nice to see you in here. I'm not sure if you're okay with me saying your actual name because I do know your actual name, but good to see you in here, Ringworld. But what do you think of the other DC Universe shows? I'm trying to think of them. So Titans, I'll just sort of give a brief one so I can wrap up the stream relatively soon. Titans has moments of being okay, but it's ultimately kind of really frustrating because those are characters that I love from comics, and they just don't use them well. Season 2 of Titans improved a little bit on it, but still kind of ultimately fell flat. So I don't love Titans. I wish it was better. I like their casting. I don't even mind the sort of darker Zack Snyder-y tone of the show. It's just sort of like kind of meandering plot-wise, and so Titans just kind of like, it just doesn't cohere in any story sense, and so it just kind of gets frustrating. So that's kind of my biggest frustration. Doom Patrol, fantastic. Doom Patrol is actually everything I wanted out of a DC show. If you are not watching Doom Patrol, Go watch it. It is perfect. That first season is like near pitch perfect. It has a non-binary street, a living street that identifies as non-binary, and I love it. And the episode is like the queerest thing ever. There's like a trans woman in that episode. Sorry, I'm getting very excited. That episode of Doom Patrol, every episode of Doom Patrol is great, but there's an episode about Danny the Street, who's a non-binary sentient street who like accepts outsiders, and there's like trans women and queer people in that episode, and they like sing a queer anthem. It's like the queerest thing ever, and it's a DC comic show, and I love it to death. Swamp Thing was good. I was very excited for Swamp Thing. I love the Swamp Thing comics. Swamp Thing, especially Scott Snyder's take on Swamp Thing was excellent. I loved Scott Snyder's take on Swamp Thing, so I was very excited for the Swamp Thing show, and it was good. I liked it. I was very upset that it got canceled before its time. So I'm kind of sad about Swamp Thing. It should have gotten more than it did. But I still thought the pacing was a bit off in Swamp Thing as well. And then what else? Young Justice, freaking fantastic. If you're not watching Young Justice, I won't. If you're not watching Young Justice at this point, what are you doing? You're wrong. Do it. Sorry, that got very aggressive. Like, watch Young Justice. And I think that's all of the major DC comic show. Harley Quinn, the animated series, fantastic. Go watch it. It's one of my favorite shows on right now. I think that's everything. Those are the major ones anyways. Yeah, Council, I've only seen the first seasons of Titans. Yeah, Titans isn't great, but Doom Patrol, you should, I think you would really, really love Doom Patrol, Council. Particularly, I think that one would be something that would be right up your alley. No pun intended, given the sentient street metaphor. The Arrowverse is amazing. I do watch every single Arrowverse show. That's like my comfort food. Arrowverse is my comfort themselves. Supergirl season 3, I thought was season 3 or 4, was also excellent. And Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow is actually perfect. I think they just did or will be doing a Star Trek parody episode, so I'm so excited for it. Legends of Tomorrow, fantastic. Easily the best Arrowverse show. I adore Legends of Tomorrow with all of my heart. All right, I think that's where I'm going to end off because I am getting hungry and I've been doing this for about an hour and 45 minutes. To answer the last question I just saw there, I am a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra. I will be the weird person who says I like Legend of Korra more than I like Avatar. That's a bit of a preference because Korra is I like badass women, so Korra kind of fits into that. Not that there aren't badass women in Avatar, but Korra kind of goes with that. All right, so let's just do some quick sign-off stuff before I disappear. One thing I do want to quick promote for all of you, if you are a big by the way, Ring World, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. One thing I want to just quick promote, really quickly before we go. This would be really nice to me. One of my friends and someone who also recently lost his full-time position. He worked at the same company that I did. He is one of the nicest people that I have ever known. He is super kind, super wonderful. He just started a YouTube channel called This Glorious Clockwork, where he is going to be talking about like biology and science and his excitement. He gets so exuberant and excited about science and how it like tells us about what it means to be human. He just did a video on hemoglobin and how hemoglobin works, but then he connects it into like, these are the building blocks of us as humanity. He just has such passion for this stuff, and he's honestly just a wonderful person. And I know he's kind of scared right now because I know his wife, I shouldn't give into his specific situation, but there are certain policies by the Trump administration that affects his wife and his family, and he just also lost his full-time job. So if you can give his channel a subscribe over at This Glorious Clockwork, please do. He more than deserves the support because his work is fantastic. Like, go, at the very least, go watch his first video. Judge for yourself whether you think you're going to like his content, and give him a subscribe. So This Glorious Clockwork, I just wanted to give him a shout out because he is a wonderful human who deserves all the support. That's the only thing that I really wanted to make sure I promoted before I left here. Thank you everyone for all of your support and kindness. Like I said, after I shared that I had lost my full-time job, the amount of support that I got shocks me, astounds me, and humbles me. So thank you to all of you. And regardless of, whether you're supporting me on Patreon or just on here, I'm just very thankful for you. So I really cannot tell you enough how much doing this means to me, and having a lot of people on here, interacting and having fun means to me. So, love you all. I hope you all are staying safe. Take care of yourself. Stay positive, and I will see you all on the next stream. And hopefully, by the way, next stream we'll be able to celebrate me getting to 10K. I'm very close to 10K. So hopefully next stream next week will be a 10K celebration. So, all right, love you all. Live long and prosper, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.